But it takes time sometimes to just absorb. So I have a question to Michael. So your argument was essentially that, well, in Central and Eastern Europe, these sort of protective mechanisms of rule of law and whatever extra time were missing when the introduction of neoliberalism took place, and so social fragmentation was quicker here and led to this regressive turn sooner, right? So, and then I actually have two questions relating to this. So one of them is how come that we don't see this more sort of more widespread way in Central and Eastern Europe, right? So we have this regressive avant-garde in Hungary, we have it in Poland. I don't know what your stance is on the Czech Republic. Is it as bad as here, or not? So what could explain the sort of regional differences here, right? So we don't see the regressive thing going on in some post-socialist some places in post-socialist world. And the other thing is why is it starting to happen in specific places in Western Europe, right? So why Italy, for example? Is it just accidentally it breaks through there first, or are we sort of bound to get there eventually everywhere else in the world unless we do something? So what do you think about that?
So the first question, of course, there are local differences between the development in countries in Central and East Europe, of course. And as regards to Czech Republic, I would say that the development in the Czech Republic was specific in to some extent because of a peculiar presence of so-called regressive, progressive Communist Party on the political scene. As you know, the Communist Party of Czech and Moravia, succeeded in keeping political positions after November 1989 against all odds, against despite what we could expect, considering the waves of anti-communism in the Czech Republic. The Communist Party succeeded in keeping the positions, and this caused a deviation or detour, which consisted in the fact that some anti-establishment sentiments were absorbed in the direction connected with the Communist Party. In other countries in Central and East Europe, the disintegration or liberal transformations of previous Communist Party happened, while in the Czech Republic the Communist Party kept being so-called so they have fidelity to the system, the value system of the late socialism, and the Communist Party expressed some anti-establishment attitudes, which absorbed the anti-establishment feeling in the Czech population. And this is my explanation of the difference between the development in the Czech Republic and in Hungary or in Poland. And as regards the second question, for instance, the development in Italy, I would say that the populist successes in some countries can be seen to be a coincidence of some special factors and political called culture and traditions in these countries. Italy, when considering the political development in Italy in the last 30 years, we can see some peculiarities in comparison with the political life in Germany or other European countries. Berlusconi can be seen to be one of the first populist leaders in West Europe in the previous times. And populism is a trait of Italian political culture. The contemporary Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte voted for the left parties for a long time, and in 2010 began to vote for Five-Star Movement. And this was a consequence of some failures from the Italian left parties, and Conte says that he espouses left values, but he wants to set in motion these values.
Yeah, just a footnote. I mean, I think it's important not to generalise, but one could see a cluster of 4 states within the EU, Poland, Hungary, Romania and Croatia, where a radical religious right is actually the most important force, if not directly in politics, then through the colonisation of common sense, through a kind of promotion of a conservative, heteronormative familialism. And I think that's not so present in the Czech Republic, it's not so present in the Baltic states, but the Baltic states shouldn't be forgotten as the neoliberal fundamentalists who have managed to, you know... Yes, well, yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, Orban hosted the family convention here. Yes, yes.
All right, so we have a question over there. Do we need a microphone or... Just to make sure we want another... You. Right. No. So first the gentleman in the third row. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I thought the gentleman behind us first, but nevertheless, I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. I have 2 questions or 2 remarks to make to Paul Stubbs. One is about the egalitarian syndrome in a negative sense. It was launched already during socialism and by a very solid researcher, Josip Županov. So that's something that we should think about. The second is you didn't really, you talked a lot about market socialism, and you quoted Milica Uvalić's idea that market mechanisms were overridden by political ones. Now the figures actually show that market socialism pushed Yugoslavia into a deep crisis. The difference, there was an incredible increase of social inequalities and north-south divide. So the 74 reform or constitutional reform is actually a Kapelner response to that, and we may discuss about its success.
Are we collecting?
Yeah, no, so please go ahead answering, and then I see who else is, just to see the hands, any more hands.
Rasko, thanks for that. The second one's easier to answer than the first, because the second one I totally agree with you. I think this is absolutely right, and the reason why the work on the non-aligned movement seems to be so important is Tito's recognition that in the way that Yugoslavia was failing to bridge the technology gap with the West, he was looking for new markets in India and Asia and all of that, but then the inequalities within and between different republics become a consequence of market socialism. I completely agree with you there. Now, Zhupanov. Now this becomes very nerdy because it maybe nobody else gets very interested in this. I'm a great fan of Zhupanov's work. I think Zhupanov was a neoclassical critic of socialism who became a socialist critic of capitalism before he died. But one thing that he never was an empirical sociologist, and the work that he did on the egalitarian syndrome was much more philosophical than it was really sociologically empirically based. But the way in which a new generation of very empiricists, Croatian mainly sociologists and political scientists, have taken this up has been really, really interesting and problematic. So, yeah, the worst bit, when I read Zhupanov, I still find, you know, that modernization slope theory, and it's no coincidence that he was working a lot with Swedish scholars, that in a sense, you know, his argument with Yugoslavia was, it's when you use when I get a little worried when people talk about political culture, and long-standing political culture, like how old is political culture, 300 years old. So Zhupanov's argument was that Yugoslav traditional culture was holding back Yugoslav development through an over-attachment to the wrong kind of equality, in a sense. So it was an important debate. And of course, Zhupanov also, you have to read with Zhupanov talking as someone close to the party, someone as a critic of the party, someone working in international sociological circles. It's very interesting to multiply read Zhupanov, but as you say, we can talk more about this afterwards.
Okay, one last short question.
The microphone happened to land up with me, so I used the possibility. Thank you, Andrea Komloshi from Vienna. With regard to Michael HAUSER, I appreciate this complex of inferiority that you introduced, but otherwise you used a lot of terms which are very strange for me, and I think they would require more explication. For instance, universalism of citizenship, I don't know exactly what you mean. I think it's an overestimation of liberal values as if that existed anywhere. Also the use of populism, I think we should restrain of using this word. We already had another definition, a very complicated one given by Paul Stubbs just immediately. I think any political party and movement should try to be a populist movement. Otherwise it would be completely elitist, and we see a lot of elitist movements with new leaders and this kind of oligarch parties and so on. So they are not populist maybe, but that's why I wouldn't blame any movement for being populist. I think we have to express our criticism in a more precise way and not falling in that trap of the liberal press. And also the term avant-garde, I can understand how you use it, but it reveals to me that that your discussion is too much restrained in a political context. I think the whole debate why Eastern Europe is different has to be embedded in an economic analysis. And I cannot give this economic analysis now, but for instance, the transition that didn't start in '89. Who in '89 thought that this would become a progressive movement was ignoring the fact that in economic terms Eastern Europe was incorporated into the capitalist system, and it was a consequence that it would become peripheralized, or as Paul Stubbs said, the global East. And in such a peripheralized position, political movements and expressions, of course, are different than in the West, and it cannot be discussed in the very political term of avant-garde. But of course, they are ahead in certain aspects. For instance, this deregulation and flexibilization to which the collapse of communism contributed a lot, made them much more fit for a neoliberal transition than the countries in the West with their social democratic traditions.
Quick answer, please. You're off to coffee.
Quick answer. I tried to define the term universalism of citizenship as the politics of equal distribution of social and political rights in the society. And I know that universalism of citizenship didn't come in existence practically nowhere in full-fledged form. It's true, but we can connect it with welfare state politics in Western countries in some periods. It's true, we should have a look at economical development with connection with political one. It's true. And as I said, the term universalism of citizenship I took over from Gaspar Damasch. And as regards the transition and economical circumstances in Central and East Europe, in the Czech Republic, some alternative economical concept of transformation appeared shortly after 1989. That were the concepts elaborated by people who was connected with Prague Spring to some extent. But these concepts were put aside immediately because of the hardline neoliberal concepts which were understood to be the best way how to get to the level of West countries, and this appeared to be fake.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening to this panel, and thank you for our presenters, Mr. HAUSER and Paul. So we have coffee in the backstage. Is that correct? I should hope so. So thanks again very much, and enjoy your coffee break.